right. Good evening to everyone. I am Hemanth Rao. I'm the founder of Single Malt Amateur Club, India's foremost whiskey club. And we established the club in 2011. And we are close to 3,000 registered members as of today. And they are spread across the globe. And we do have a few people from outside India who joined us today. And thank you so much for subscribing. Well, it is for forums like this that we are well known for, and we welcome all of you to Whisky Wise. As you can see, it promises to be a cracker of an evening because I have some unbelievable representation out here. I haven't seen this kind of forum in India. Glad to see a virtual forum that has formed such as this. I mean, I'm really thrilled to host such a event on our club. We have a packed house and we may not be able to take questions from everyone in the audience. As you can imagine, we have more than 60 people who have registered for this event. And we just put this 4 days back. That tells us a lot as to how people are enthusiastic and turning towards e-sessions today. But yes, that's how it was. And send in all your questions to Harsha. Harsha would be reflecting on your screen as Single Malt Club, SMAC Whiskey Club. That's what would be reflecting as the name on your screen. So send in your questions to Harsha, who's administering the call and who'd be moderating it as well. In case you have any tech issues, then he would be able to help. We have sent you some helpline numbers as well in case that some of you have issues. So you may want to reach out to them in case that happens. Well, having said that, as I said, we are already 6 minutes into the session and I'd like to start off as soon as possible. First, a quick round of introductions. And I'd start off with Ashok. Ashok Chakalingam needs no introduction as such, is the head of global sales, brand ambassador, and now the master distiller at Amrit Distilleries. Give us a wave, Ashok, and tell us what you're drinking today if you're drinking something.
I'm going to do a bottle kill.
Oh,
yeah, it's opened a while ago. Old charter, 12-year-old. It's discontinued now. But I have a little bit left to finish it up today.
Okay.
What a fantastic dram to start the session. Ashok, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us here.
All right, I'm going to move on to a person who would like to be introduced as the master storyteller. He likes that as his identity, but in the materialistic world, he is actually the head of marketing at Paul John Distilleries, Goa. He's given us some fantastic whiskey experiences, and I'd like him to welcome him to the session. Himanshu, say hi and tell us what you're sipping on.
Hi guys, this is Himanshu, and I am sipping on the first single cask that we have done in India. And you know, SMAC has been our, in the millennial language, the Bay before anyone else. And this was the first club and the first single cask we did with them. And yes, so that's what's in this glass, Hemanth and Harsha. And thank you for this opportunity.
Himanshu, thank you so much. That gives me great joy that you're drinking our single cask whiskey exclusively for the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Chanel Martin. She's the head distiller for Stranger&Sons, producing gin in Goa. Now, I get this a lot. Some of you may be wondering as to why we have someone from the gin fraternity out here on this call, but there's a history to that and we'll get to that in a while. But Chanel, what are you drinking? Chanel, can you hear us? Can you say hello? Chanel, when you try that again one more time.
Hi, sorry,
okay,
I think I was muted.
Okay.
Hello everyone and good evening. I'm Chanel and I'm the distiller for Stranger&Sons, and right now I'm drinking the Paul John edited.
Yeah.
So that was what I had with me, and I usually have that. I like it.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Still the loyalties lie with the brown spirits, I see. Okay, we'll come to that in a while. All right. Robin, special thanks to you. As I said a while before, Robin is joining us from the US and it's close to 8 in the morning there. I guess that's coffee in his jug right now, or mug. Yeah, that's the coffee mug I can see, or maybe tea. But how are things out there, Robin? And Robin is the brand ambassador for Glen Grant. Thank you so much for being on the session, Robin.
Oh, thank you. It's a real privilege to be getting up at 6 in the morning and to get onto a live virtual whiskey tasting. It's great. I mean, you know, we have a very small footprint in the Indian market with a very high-end single malt Scotch whiskey called Glen Grant. So if any of you have heard of this gentleman, Jim Murray,
Yeah.
you'll probably know that Glen Grant is one of his favorites. So fully, you know, I'm looking forward to the discussion and being among some very eminent people who are in the business of distilling and making some good liquid. So I'm humbly but also thankful to join this discussion today.
Thank you, Robin. Pleasure to have you here. And I need to mention one more person. I think so. Suchana is as a part of the audience. She is the brand ambassador for Glen Grant in India and from the Campari group. Suchana, thank you so much for putting us in touch with Robin and making this possible. I'm going to move on to Angad now. Angad is the brand ambassador for Glenfiddich, world's largest consumed single malt whiskey. That must feel real good when I say that, Angad, right?
Not bad, right?
Yeah, not bad at all. Now, is that Glenlivet in your glass by any chance? I'm sorry, I couldn't avoid that. But tell us what you're drinking, Angad.
I'm drinking some Paul John today.
Oh man,
Just to feel a part of the group here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm also kidding. I'm just drinking some Glenfiddich 15 Solera system. Though I love Paul John, one of my favorite Indian whiskeys, and I was like, when I got invited to this, I was super excited to maybe ask some questions as well later on.
Well,
but thank you for this opportunity. And Harsh for inviting me in, and hope we have a great conversation about this time.
We look forward, Angad. Yeah, we have a packed agenda, so let's move on. So the next person that I have is Krishna. Krishna is a sitting judge on the Malt Maniacs group. Malt Maniacs are a group of independent evaluators of whiskey. He's been a great supporter for our club and has always been as a guide to me in a lot of areas. Krishna, thank you so much for joining us and tell us what you're drinking today. You already said that you're drinking Paul John. And there are a lot of Paul John loyalists on this call today, aren't we?
No, you see, I have a lot of samples and I raise my hand. There are so many samples available. Whatever I get, I just pick. And by chance, the Paul John came to you, but it's a fantastic whiskey, Paul John Christmas edition.
Okay.
I've been drinking whiskey for the last 20-25 years. And as you know, the maltmadness.com is the reason for which I am into whiskey. The maltmadness.com was founded by Johannes van den Heuvel in Amsterdam. And later on, people from all over the world joined. There are about 30 members now. I am from India. And my main message is to pass on the message of good spirits, whiskeys, and share my experiences, tell stories like Himanshu. Basically, spread the message of whiskey.
So thank you very much, Krishna. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next person that I have to introduce, I think so quite a few members would recognize him. He is Vishnu Kabadi. He is our key man in terms of our supply chain. He is the owner of the retail store called Anurag Wines, through which SMAC distributes all its member exclusive whiskeys to the market. Vishnu, hi. Say hi to
good evening, everyone.
And
hello, everyone. Yeah.
Tell us what you're drinking today.
Well, it's very hot day today, so I'm trying to choose a beer for tonight. So it's going to be a stout beer for myself.
Okay.
It's pretty hot tonight in Bangalore.
All right. Thanks, Vishnu. Thanks for joining.
Cheers, everyone.
Yep.
Cheers.
All right, let's crack in then. Okay, I have some questions for all of you, as you can imagine, and some of the audience will get the opportunity to raise questions. So let's get started. I'm going to start again with Ashok. I'm just going through the cycle of whiskey production. And since we don't have a farmer with us right now in terms of who grows the barley, I start with the person who's very deeply involved in the production of whiskey. Now, Ashok, tell us as to what's really happened in the last couple of months because of COVID. What's happened to the manufacturing process? Have you seen challenges? I'm sure that there are challenges, were they considerable, were they negligible? And tell us with a focus probably to single malt whiskey, which we are all interested in. But give us your overall, experience, what the last 2-3 months have been like.
Needless to say, the last 2-3 months been very difficult. The problem is, especially when you have a process industry like malt distillation, the government cannot come and tell you that, hey buddy, from tomorrow morning you are shut down. It's not possible, because I have done mashing, things are fermenting. I can't just basically dump the drain down the drain and go. So that was a challenge for us, because all my fermenters were full at the time when the government has announced lockdown. And then assuming that I'm going to ferment for at least 5 days per tank, and then you add another 6 days for 6 fermenters. So it's basically 11 days I need to wait in total to basically at least distill off. So then we kind of beg to the excise, 6 tanks into 20,000 liters. That's 120,000 liters of beer, which you got to basically drain it down. So somewhat we managed to basically distill it off and then put it. And at least from that perspective, we did not waste much. Then everything was completely shut down for 40 days. The challenge was I could not basically go and monitor some of the barrels that I wanted to. So fortunately, nothing has happened drastically to those barrels which I wanted to monitor personally on a monthly basis. Somewhat we got it over. From the sales point of view, it's very tough, because we are not allowed to export anything out of the state at the moment. Forget about the country. And then all the European market is really stagnated at the moment, except 1 or 2 markets. United States is the same. I mean, every state is different. So overall, it's not really good, but I'm really optimistic that we can all bounce back, but we need time. So I guess nothing is going to happen until perhaps August, because you have summer holidays comes in Europe and the USA, which is the month of July and August. So it's going to be slow months anyway. So it's a challenging time for all of us, but at the end of the day, you have to face the reality.
Okay. Sounds good. And there was something that you folks also did during this lockdown period in terms of producing sanitizers, like quite a few distilleries have actually done.
Yes, we have produced quite a bit of sanitizer, and then gave it away for free of cost for a lot of hospitals in and around Bangalore, to just basically do as much as we can possibly do.
Ashok, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm just going to move on to another perspective about the situation, and I'd like to take a look at the marketing perspective. Himanshu, this question is towards you, saying that, tell us as to how it's been. As Ashok, shared with us a minute back, I'm sure that there's some difficult moments out there, but what I'm actually interested to know is, how is marketing looking at it? How is sales looking at it? I'm sure that there must have been an impact, but how do the budgets look like for the future? What are the new challenges that you see? And what's the sentiment in your organization per se, if I may ask, in terms of dealing with this situation of COVID-19?
So, we had 3 phases. I remember we were shooting for our new releases with Mr. Paul P. John, and we heard that this thing is now going into a pandemic stage. And that's when the market news started disruptions in terms of Europe shutting down. That time, Italy and Spain were reaching alarming levels. We actually saw the market collapse like a house of cards. And duty-free Europe, US, it just started closing down on us, and then obviously India hit us very badly. And for Paul John, though India is still growing, but our main flagship brands, which actually supports us with all the budgets and cash flows that we need to grow the brand, got affected. So that was the Achilles heel for us, and for many distilleries as well. So the mass market brands, when it gets hits, everything comes to standstill. We are now on a recovery mode. Thankfully, our distribution is destabilized in the sense that in India in March, we have a stockpiling that happens because Goa gets into excise registration of labels. So we were doing a lot of dispatches in the month of March. We missed out the last week of March, some important dispatches, but that's fine. We have a center in Europe where we stockpile for servicing the markets. US, we have Sazerac, which is our support and the parent investor now in the company. So our distribution moved there. So in terms of making the stock available when when the markets come back, I think we had covered that. In marketing terms, obviously you need the product first to be able to do anything over there. So as we speak, we have pivoted to a lot of digital format, which is the format to go. A lot of collabs are happening on the digital front. As we speak, there are 3 other similar formats that are happening with whiskey clubs across the world. I think we have, in this 60 days of lockdown, we would have done about 25 of virtual tastings across our brand ambassadors. The good thing about international market is that the couriers were still working. So we could collaborate with the retailers to pour out dram sizes into packs, and that could go as a courier. So that right now, this is the only medium to the market as we speak. This is the only voice that is available. So we are leveraging that a lot. We are extending our support to the communities that have helped us before the COVID and when we entered those markets. So ground level initiatives with the team is on. We are not able to go out and meet them in person. Right now, we are doing that for the Karnataka market because we can move around freely. The next market which is opened up is France. The restrictions for on-premise will go from 1st of June. So I think that will be an important market for us to see as well. And I guess that would be also for Amrut as well. And, whatever activity we can get the market going will be adding the chances of success and survival.
Okay. So it does sound to be pretty, a situation that we would not want to continue for very long, Himanshu. But yes, it's glad to hear that, it's on the recovery path. Now, my next question is to the brand ambassadors, and we've got 2 of them on the call today. And actually, if you look at it, they're from different spectrums of, at one end, we have Glenfiddich, which has been in India for eons, right? And the other probably end would be Glen Grant, who is making an impression, starting to make an impression in the Indian market. That's what I read of the situation. And Angad, my first question is to you, saying that as a brand ambassador, what's the impact of COVID-19? Has Zoom become your best friend? Has e-tasting sessions, has taken over your life? What's really happened? Tell us a little bit more about this.
First and foremost, and I'm sure Robin would agree to me, that we're spending times at home and trying to figure out what home looks like, because we were living out of our suitcases pretty much all the time in this job. And to be really honest, from a personal point of view, I really have no complaints with this. I can live in my house for a period of 1 month, and that's great. That's like probably one of the biggest benefits that this time has actually given. And there were so many things that we were always trying to tell people that we don't have time for. So now those people are actually getting back and saying that now you have the time for it, so you better do that. From a role perspective, it's really changed in the last 3 months, because there are no more events happening and there's no consumer interaction face to face, and that that intimacy of whiskey that you actually require beyond fair. I mean, I'm still a huge believer of that what we can do with each other in the same room is what is very difficult to achieve on a Zoom platform. But having said that, it was really important for us to move towards the virtual zone and virtual platforms. And Zoom has been really, so I'm doing all my trainings. That was a huge chunk of business, is to train the trade and to train the hoteliers. All the hoteliers now have a lot of time for you, which earlier they used to be always busy in their hotels, and now they're absolutely free. So you can do a lot of trainings, you can do a lot of knowledge sharing with them, which is happening to another level. From a brand amalgamation and advocacy point of view, and for consumers, we're doing a lot of social media initiatives, which are making videos, going live with the malt masters, going live with craftsmen. So, you know, we are actually evaluating virtual platforms so much that I got on Zoom, I got on Insta Live with Brian Kingsman, and he was sitting outside his home in Scotland. I was in India. So for consumer, it's a great opportunity to probably experience something what is happening in this world today with the benefit of a virtual world. And for us, it's just going to be more interesting in times to come to see how our roles actually shape up in the times to come. And I have no idea when I'll be going to Scotland the next, where this used to be the month where I used to probably spend there. And, you know, this is the only part where we get to spend. But for this year, that's not going to be possible. So that'll be interesting. But all in all, it's a good learning time, and I'm actually enjoying it.
A very candid response there, Anga. Thank you very much for sharing that. Interesting views there. Robin, now this question is towards you. Now, you know, India is a new market for you, and probably I would say the brand recognition of Glen Grant hasn't been very deep as of now, and being very candid. Tell us about your brand, Glen Grant, and tell us more about how you probably want to penetrate this market, and share more views on that, please.
Well, yeah. So India's market for the future, really. Mm-hmm. It's a seeding market, really, for Glen Grant now. So we don't really focus on, attaining big volumes, mass distribution. We have to really focus on, the key accounts. So hotels, high-end restaurants, the on-premise, etc. And also seeding the brand in Vishnu's type of accounts where, that are appealing to that sort of high-end consumer. Now, you're absolutely right. Well, our brand recognition is very low, but I think there's a consumer out there who's looking beyond some of the staples, if you like, the Glenlivets, the Glenmorangys, the Macallums of the world. I'm not going to mention that Angad represents, but I think there's a world of discovery out there for single malt or whiskey drinkers, really, because we're living in the golden age, and of course nowadays everybody has one of these, so access to information is very easy. And of course, this is what it's all about. Our category, it's all about education, and those consumers who are getting into whiskey, and you're all on this Zoom now, including myself. We want to fast track to become experts, and we want to know how the whiskey's made, and a little bit of the science and a little bit of the art and the alchemy about making whiskey. So that's what people are doing, and people are looking and exploring and discovering new whiskies. And And this is something, I mean, Glen Grant, just to give you a little bit of information about our brand, we were established 180 years ago. So this is our 180th birthday party. We're we're located in the small town of Rothes, which is one of the big distilling towns. You know, you have Aberlour, Craigellachie, Dufftown, Elgin, Rothes, right in the heart of Speyside. We have 4 distilleries in the town of Rothes. Grant's the oldest. And we make quite a delicate style of malt whiskey. We're quite famous for having the tallest stills in the distillery. One of the tallest stills in the Scotch whisky industry, and that's this. I don't know if you can see the still house behind me, but these are very unique stills. They're tall and slender, and the top of each still is a water cooling purifier, and they were around about the 1880s, and that really delivers the sort of fruity, aromatic style of Glen Grant. And back to the main background, I have a little, and unfortunately you won't be able to smell this, but when the spirit comes off the still, it's perfectly clear. But what makes Glen Grant stand out? It has a very aromatic, fruity, and malty nose. And of course, Glen Grant was always used by blenders. It was very coveted by blenders and would go into a lot of the famous blends out there. I mean, mentioning, Royal Salute, Chivas Regal, for example. And Glen Grant was known as a top dresser. So when you're blending, you're using base malt or malts to have a base flavor, fillers, and then top dressers. And Glen Grant was the top dresser malt whiskey that went into a lot of those blends to deliver that, fruity, aromatic aroma. And so another fact is that we still process in a lot of the traditional ways. We have wooden fermenters. We age our barrels in stone dunnage warehouses, not steel concrete warehouses. So very traditional. We bottle every drop of spirit that we make at the distillery. Not many distilleries do that, particularly in Speyside, where most of the whiskey is pumped into tankers and then trucked down to Glasgow, where the big bottling lines are. And then finally, I think, there's a lot of new distilleries out there, and we're living in the age of the craft distilling movement. But that's not to forget that, experience is very important too. And we have in terms of experience, we have our master distiller, Dennis Malcolm, who started in 1961 at the age of 15 as an apprentice cooper. He's now today Scotland's longest serving distiller. All of those ingredients put together, we're creating, Glen Grant, which we don't produce a lot of spirit. We're kind of a medium, small size distillery. But in terms of, and may I promote Jim Murray and Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible. I mean, we're getting scores in the 90s to mid to high 90s. So something's going right. And I just hope that you're able to maybe find a bottle of Glen Grant and just try it. It's what we call a Scotchy Scotch. It's not smoky, it's not heavy, it's very delicate and soft, but it packs a lot of punch in terms of delivery of flavor, aroma. It's quite harmonized, good nose, good palate, good finish. And that's what we should all be striving to achieve, I think.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Robin. I'd like to get my hand on that new make, though. That sounds very interesting indeed. Vishnu, now tell us about, everyone has seen those crazy videos, crazy pictures about what happened when the 41-day lockdown just came off. I mean, we have seen the crazy amount of people in front of every store, and that is not typically to the large stores like Tonic, which is in terms of size, and it was across. I guess every liquor store had those kind of crowds in front. But tell us how it has been post the initial rush. How has the demand been? Has it continued throughout? Has it dipped? What's it been like?
Yeah. So Hemant, as you know, when we were heard that, we're going to be opening the stores for the first time after this 41 days of this COVID thing, and we were really skeptical of how we were going to be dealing with these things and, having these kind of things around us. And, we had to follow the government norms, which we had to barricade our shops, and, we had to make sure we sanitize all the place of where we go inside and stuff like that. And it was a very hectic day on the day one. It was a huge rush where we had I almost sold out everything what I had. It was just like a panic buying. People came, even though if no we they knew that we're not going to close it again, but people still have that in their mind that you never know what is going to happen. So that reason people started thronging to the shops wherever they could find and stand wherever they could, wait for hours together to buy a bottle, maybe a bottle, or maybe for weeks of time. So it was good sales initially. We had a very good sales, and slowly decreasing the days come by, and slowly, as you know that the government of Karnataka increased the taxes for the COVID up to 25%. We had a very big hit of the premium segments and the normal alcohol to increase from up to 25%. It is a big hit. So now people have thronged to buy it very slowly because they have initially bought for maybe panic buying. So now the sales have come a little bit low. The supply is slowly coming up because we have to update the new pricing from the governments. So now the supplies are pretty decent enough. And as tomorrow we have a lockdown. Again, there was a huge rush today. Again getting panics to people saying that it might close again for a few days more. So so this kind of creation is very confusing. We're not having a decent amount of business gradually, but we are having more of up and downs. And the losses what we incurred for 41 days is still really not made up till now, even though if we had good sales for a day one or day two gradually. Yeah, Hemant.
Okay, makes sense. Of course, Vishnu. Let's hope that this doesn't happen again in terms of retail stores going closed. But I'm moving on to Chanel. Now, quite a few of you might be thinking what a representative from Stranger and Sons, gin maker, is doing here in a whiskey discussion. For those of you who are not aware of her previous avatar, she has been an Alco Bev R&D specialist in a large organization that owns half of the whiskey brands. And her specialty was whiskey, and that's how I know Chanel. And with gin, what we wanted to actually explore is from an outsider's perspective. Now, she knows whiskey intimately well, and from an outsider's perspective, I wanted to find out how they're comparing against each other, brown spirits to white spirits. Are they two different worlds? Has the same impact been felt in the gin producing nations, distilleries, etc.? Tell us more about what's happened, Chanel. Okay, Harsha, you need to unmute Chanel, please. Yeah, I think so. There you go, Chanel. Yeah.
Yeah. So so far, like the past of being in the whiskey space, I mean, it's really nice to be back here with everybody and be back into the whiskey space. It's been really nice. And so far, I think the gin space, especially our brand, has been fairly new. So with the whole COVID, when it did happen, we had to shut production immediately. The distilleries were shut, and we do use a lot of fresh ingredients in terms of our fruits and citruses. A lot of wastage, a lot of spoilage. Thankfully, there was not too much, but we still did suffer a massive loss to our production in terms of what we were planning for the whole months to come, as well as planning for whatever's ahead. So all that got affected. But thankfully with Goa, they did open a lot sooner than Bangalore because we were a green zone. Not anymore, but we did open in the beginning of this month, and we have been back to work. The distillery's been back open, back functioning. I've been going to work every day now, and we've been slowly trying to make up for the loss that we've had in the numbers before this. And as you know, like gin is still I think definitely growing slowly. And the way I think the COVID has hit, maybe for us, we were looking at coming to Bangalore really soon, and that was one of the main things that got affected. We would have been in Bangalore by June, but now that's going to be pushed a little further because of our production and things like that. But hopefully there soon as well. So that's something you can hopefully look forward to in from Stranger and Sons and from us. And but besides that, I think just the whole because of fresh ingredients, getting back to now that cycle of sourcing ingredients has become one of our main challenges with the COVID. So initially, we did get our some of our citruses like the Gondraj lemon that comes all the way from Kolkata, and we've also recently had the cyclone that's hit that state. So it's badly affected the farmers that we source from, and now getting that ingredient has become also a lot more expensive. But just getting it from Kolkata to Goa has become a massive challenge for us, as well as some of the spices that have got affected because vendors and traders and farmers during this period have not been able to source their ingredients. So we've been trying to work with different farmers, local farmers in Goa, and thankfully before the COVID we did our we keep doing research as to looking at different farmers, and thankfully they've been helpful.
So a lot of supply chain issues is what I'm hearing, Chanel. Yeah,
supply chain issues, but that's what's taken quite a bit of time to sort out in terms of gin, just because of it's being so botanical and ingredient based, and we having to source ingredients from different parts of India. So that's actually been our main challenge during this entire COVID.
Understand.
Besides that, yeah, we've been trying to keep our spirits high and get back to work.
Yeah, we hope that you get back pretty soon. So I'm just going to quickly move to Krishna. Now, Krishna, everyone's on e-tasting across the world. Now, I have a very candid question to you. Does it work in the Indian context? And what suggestions would you have to, some people who would want to have a successful e-tasting session in India?
Hemanth, before I answer this question, I want to say something about how COVID has hit me.
Okay.
Actually, it is disastrous. It is so bad. I feel my wings have been cut.
That's a bit extreme, Krishna.
Yeah. You see, people drink for pleasure, for enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
See, our speakers, right from Ashok to Angad, everybody has spoken very bravely and put up brave faces. But let me tell you, people don't drink at the corner of their small room and enjoy the drink. Except I do it once in a year for about 30 days to do my Malt Maniacs Awards tastings. That's pretty serious drinking where you drink alone. People go out, go to places to drink. Once that is cut, where is the enjoyment? So
I understand, Krishna. So, but what I probably the question is just to ensure, saying that there are a lot of this happening across the group. I just wanted to know your perspective on that, saying that do you think that in India as a country, at the maturity that it is having in terms of whiskey, are we really there in terms of doing an e-tasting?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I have not answered. I have not stopped my the answer. Right. Yep. You see, this e-tasting has been there. You see, as Malt Madness, when we formed about 20 years ago, there were guys from Australia up to Toronto, to Ottawa, 25, 30 guys. So we used to have e-tasting on email. So what happens? It works. It works in India. It works everywhere. Any place in the world, it works. Only thing is you have to put certain parameters. Like in those days, what we say, we used to have a Macallan 18-year-old, general 18-year-old with a Grand Reservoir. When Macallan, when it was not used to cost our arm and leg. Those days, it was still affordable. Nowadays, you can't do. So what you do in e-testing is, first of all, you form a group of like-minded people. You see, it should not be a huge group. I think in e-testing, like this in the Zoom, you can have maximum 10 to 12 people. So you form a base, a subject, like you say, let us taste head to head of say an Amrit peated with an Amrit with a Paul John peated. It's an apple to apple tasting, and all the people should have the same bottles and same glassware. Or even in an e-tasting, you can even experiment with those. Last time you said that glassware experiment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Even glassware experiment goes very well in e-tasting. So whatever is you do, you should have a common
equipment
and common drink.
Yeah, yeah. Understand.
It should be apple to apple.
Right.
You don't drink a 30-year-old Glen Grant with a 7-year-old Amrit. So it doesn't go well. It doesn't match. So all the people should have the same spirit and same glasses, so that the comparison and the comments will be similar. So it doesn't go haywire. And if you want to start in SA or SMAC group, you can start with the beginning with some experienced people. So it can form the basis, and you can go ahead. People can form their own. Actually, instead of SMAC, they can form their own e-tastings. So it works. It will work. It will definitely work. Absolutely no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Krishna. Now, I can see that already we are running short of time, and I haven't anywhere covered half of the questions that I had. That's where we're going to be notorious, every time this happens, of following the discussion as such. My next question is on consumer behavior. And again, I'm going to go back to Himanshu on this. So I guess no better person. So Himanshu, give us some insights into consumer behavior. You've been in the alcohol marketing industry from wine and now whiskey, and you have seen some rapid changes. What do you think the new normal is going to look like? I mean, tell us, saying that from the consumer perspective, especially with the focus on India, how is it going to look like in the near future? Harsha, unmute Himanshu, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Himanshu.
Okay. See, what we are seeing is a big shift in terms of home consumption. That is a primary that is coming through across the segments that we have dealt with, both internationally and in India as well. What is also happening is I have to draw a parallel here, and as you have commended me as a storyteller, I have to tell you a short story. Gary Mehigan of MasterChef actually gave the reason why MasterChef became so popular, not only in Australia, but why the MasterChef Australia became popular across the world. And that was because of the 2008 recession. 2007, when they did some pilots and saw how it will go, but come 2008, the recession took grip and people stayed home because they did not have dispensable income to go out and have a great time, great meal. And like Krishna said, my wings are clipped. That's what happened. But people did not, the desire to have an experience did not go away. And when MasterChef demonstrated that you can have a great meal, great presentation, great quality of food at your home table, that's when it took off. And I think today the following the same suit would be the home bartending. And I think that is one segment which particularly whiskey and particularly single malters did not build that as a community. A lot of whiskeys have done, but not so strongly. And I think this segment of entertaining at home, doing the service rituals, doing, expressing it with great cocktails, I think that these are the two things that will show promise. A lot of bars, and I know a few chains have started doing premixes, and saying, hey, you go and pick up your alcohol or what you have at home, but here is a ready premix that you can add to your gin, to your whiskey, or to your spirits. And I think that consumption at home and making it more sociable will happen, because even if the bars open tomorrow, it will not be people rushing in there. The social distancing norms on how the new normal sets in into this place. Like for today, I must say that I had a tea and a whiskey session in the afternoon, and this was my first physical social interaction after the lockdown had opened. And I didn't know, I was at a very awkward place to know whether should I be shaking hands. There were a few friends that I knew. Should we be giving hugs to each other? So these are the new normals that are setting in physically as well.
Yep.
So yeah, at the end we were brave enough to do a group photograph, but I think that's where it was. And I think it's fascinating on how the social behavior will drive the consumption in the safety. I think the first priority would be any environment, whether home or outside, is it safe enough for me? And that will drive whatever consumptions that we want to look at across brands.
Okay. I think so. Some very practical points noted there, Himanshu. Thank you very much. I think so. Yes, I'd also be very hesitant to probably shake hands and to give our friends a hug next time we do a tasting session. But yeah, well said indeed. Now, everyone in India knows, or rather everyone across the globe knows, that India as a whiskey producing nation is known for, because the maturation is faster and there is probably a lot more happening because of our weather, environment, etc. My next question is to Ashok. Ashok, what's the next best thing that people from outside will expect from India? I mean, is there space for creativity, like different distillation methods? I see different casks being used at the moment. Are we going to see more of that? Are we going to see different types of barley being experimented with? Tell us a little bit more. I mean, is there space for creativity? Is something going to happen beyond what's already done right now?
I think there is a lot of scope for creativity, for sure. Sky is the limit, and everything is there in front of you. It all depends on how you see it. And then, like any R&D, you may not expect like every project that you take on will be successful. You give a go on, especially countries like India. The advantage is, with the due respect to SWA, we don't have a very stringent regulation. However, we as a producer, we know where our market is. For example, if I have to sell something in the European Union, European Union whiskey regulation is cut and paste of SWA, right? So I still need to basically comply to what it is. And then by the same token, if I got to sell it in America, I got to basically meet the rules, right? So when we develop a new project, we keep that in our mind that we don't want to break the rules of whiskey making. For example, Narangi is a classic example, and SWA cannot say anything to me because I did not break any rules at all. It's basically we played around, and then instead of going straight, we just made a U-turn and come back to the same place, right? And like that, there are plenty of opportunities for R&D. I would say like more can be done on the distillation and maturation. And with regards to the varieties of barley, it's debatable. Of course, I won't say there is no contribution of barley variety into the flavor of whiskey. Yes, indeed, it does. But if you wanted to play an indigenous game, so then I have to play more on distillation and the way how you can mature the whiskey. I think our focus is going to be more on that going forward.
Well, that's interesting to hear, Ashok, and I hope to see many more experiments coming out from the Amrit stable as it has already been doing so long. I'm going to move to Robin. Now, Robin, we have seen two expressions of Glen Grant in India, the 10-year and the 18-year, if I remember right. But there is a host of other options when we go outside from Glen Grant, whether it's IBs or OBs. Can we expect more? I mean, is there a room for special variants to come to India? What are the plans like?
Well, when Campari bought Glen Grant Distillery in 2007, all the whiskey was 5 years old. And now we've had the distillery for, 15 or so years, where our stocks are beginning to mature. So in the future, we'll start to see that more expressions of Glen Grant. I think my internet was a little bit shaky there. No, in the future, we'll start to see more expressions of Glen Grant come into the market, and they'll be rarer Glen Grants, and there'll also be limited editions, because I think there's a huge opportunity to look at smaller parcels of liquid, which is unique. And of course, we use ex-bourbon barrels, and we also use ex-Oloroso sherry barrels. We don't really do cast finishings. We marry, or we will fill bourbon and sherry barrels side by side. They'll age side by side, and then we'll marry them. So in the 10 years old, which is bourbon and sherry, the 18 years old in India is refill ex-bourbon. So it's specifically, we'll pick parcels of liquid that fit the formulas for each. But I just wanted to go back to the COVID question, because there's been a lot of talk, and maybe too much talk, but we spend a lot of our time invested in the on-premise, educating bartenders, building sort of experiences for consumers. That's where brands are built, really, in the on-premise. And then once the consumer has tried a new whiskey in a bar, they're likely to go to a liquor store and make that purchase. So we depend very much on the on-premise, which has been completely stopped. And many of our partners in the trade, the bar owners, bartenders are now unemployed. Many of the bars have closed down. The hotels are closed. The restaurants are closed. And this has been a huge disruption in our business. Fortunately, as Himanshu has, that there's been a pivot, and Agna too, a pivot to the virtual tasting experience. And this has been a great opportunity for me and many people like me, is to tap into that happy hour virtual tasting, which we're doing now. So although we're not connecting as we usually do, and getting onto a plane and traveling all the way to India to do tastings and all of the rest of it, we are still connecting, and thank God for the technology. It's not always perfect, but at least we're still able to, thank God,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a little bit internet speeds, I guess, catching in there, Robin, but we got most of what you said, and thanks so much for this. Now, Angad is really scaring me with his video. I guess he's just getting ready to just rush off to the wedding, so I need to get more from him before he decides to leave us midway. Harsha, can you unmute Angad, please, before he runs away? Now, Angad, can you...
With you, Hemanth, with you.
Yeah, okay, thankfully at the moment. Right, so Angad, tell us, as a brand representative from Glenfiddich, what are the kind of subtle differences that you adopt to deal with the Indian market, as opposed to someone handling an international audience or something like that? I'm sure there are differences, because as a person who's running a club, I see those differences sometimes, and I'm sure as a brand representative, you must be seeing quite some of it. So tell us more about that.
Thanks for your question, Hemanth. So the biggest difference that probably somebody can see in India and anywhere else in the world is that we live in a continent. We actually don't live in a country, whereas the other ambassadors mostly manage a country where the same language is spoken in the entire country. And so it's not like the same, but it's still similar, right? But we cannot actually compare ourselves, because from a Hyderabad or a Bangalore, when you come here up north to a Punjab or a Haryana, and when you go down to Calcutta and then Pune and Maharashtra, it's a very, very interesting country that we live in. So consumption patterns are different. Cost of a Glenfiddich bottle will vary probably 2 or 3 times when I go down south of what it is in Gurgaon. So my consumer is really different. From a Glenfiddich consumer up here in the north to a Glenfiddich consumer up there in Bangalore or a Hyderabad or a Chennai or Visakhapatnam. Probably when I go to small towns like a Lucknow or an Indore or a Chandigarh, that is where I feel maximum difference in terms of the consumer. So the advocacy and the whole spiel and the whole event has to be designed in a very different way. Because at the end of the day, we could be knowing about whiskey a lot, right? About how to talk about it, how to palate it. But sometimes the consumer doesn't really want that. And you can actually go there and be talking about what you do. The same hat for every person doesn't fit in a country like India. So that's where it gets really interesting. So it's about 3 years now that I've been doing this, and that probably I would say in last year and a half is now getting a hand of things. And I understand each and every market after traveling it probably 5 to 6 times that, okay, things work differently here. To give you a fair example, in Punjab, when you start a tasting, you start it a very different way because you serve the food first. Whereas in Bangalore, when I start a tasting, I do the tasting first and then move it towards the food. So nitty-gritties like these in terms of a consumer is what would be the biggest difference that we have. Apart from that, we are a whiskey loving nation. So if we love whiskey, we love the brand ambassadors who do whiskey as well. So probably that is one take that I have from this job, that people are always trying to make my life as easy as they can. So if there are small glitches, probably I can get away in India by saying that, okay, maybe we can, next time I'll be coming more prepared on that front. If there's something not arranged, it's more relaxed here. Whereas in some markets, there are more uptight as consumers as well, as what I've figured out globally. So that's one big difference that we see in India.
You know, Angad, the point that I actually kept resonating in my mind is that you get a lot of love. We'll get into that topic a little bit later when we meet in person. We'll see where all you get the love from. We'll get to that. But I'm just continuing from what Ashok said a few minutes back about creativity in terms of the whiskey market. Now, we have more than a couple of single malt producers in India that we have, apart from the flagship and leaders out here, which is Amrit and Paul John. We have Rampur now, and we have Solon, we have Codes, and we have few others experimenting about, you know, single malt whiskey. And I'm hoping that we're going to have good things coming our way. Saying this, I have a surprise element for all of you. Someone who's worked with a leading brand and now consulting with lesser known distilleries in India. Ladies and gentlemen, I have for you Surinder Kumar, ex-master distiller and blender for Amrit Distilleries, now as an advisory role in Piccadilly Agro Industries and other distilleries. Surinder, thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. I know that I have not been throwing any questions at you, but I wanted to say probably a very intriguing question for you, and that's the reason why I've been keeping you a secret. I haven't announced you as a part of the panel, but thank you very much for being here with us. Yeah. Now, Surinder, the question that I really have for you is that, you know, tell us what's happening in the more obscure, lesser known distilleries. What's happening in terms of experimentation? Are we going to see more number of single malt whiskeys coming from these distilleries? Are we going to see better quality? How are we placed? I mean, I just want the audience to get a general feeling of what we're going to experience apart from what we are seeing today that's available in the market.
Yeah. So, see, basically what's happening is, as per my experience, dealing with the northern, distilleries, a couple of them, maybe 3 or 4 of them, I had the interaction, a detailed discussion with them when they thought that I should get engaged with them for certain things. And basically, what is happening is there are some challenges for the blenders in India, and the one thing is the inconsistencies in the supply of the components, whiskey components. Say, for example, for blending, if you have to blend, you have to blend it either with a malt, Indian malt, which is produced by some other distillery, or the Scotch. They want to import from different sources, right? So that's one ingredient of supply chain, and there are uncertainties of the supplies. Even if, say, for example, I, as a distillery, I supply an ingredient to you as a blender, but then you're not sure. First thing is, you're not sure that I'm going to repeat the supplies in the future. That's one thing. And second thing is the inconsistencies in the quality parameters. You're not happy with my second consignment or the third consignment. The third is not matching the second consignment. The second is not matching the first consignment. So that's I literally saw it. In fact, when we were dealing with the Amrut, and we had the similar kind of problems, issues, even when we are importing from very good distilleries in Scotland. So that issue remains there, and so to circumvent these issues. Now, what is the interesting thing that I came to know about the mindset of the distillers in North is that they are somehow, the reliability on this on the others to supply them the ingredients is getting lesser and lesser now. So the concept they've come to the conclusion that probably to mitigate this, this limitation, I feel most of them, at least I have done 2 rounds of discussion with 2 different distilleries in India, and all of them are starting their own malt production now, right? So they have come to a conclusion that if you have to be in this trade for long, and with the premiumization of the brands, and we need to be self-sufficient, we need not to be dependent on others. So what is happening is, ultimately, the distiller who is putting the capital to set up a malt plant, and it's not only the plant, he has to set up the plant, then he has to set up the facilities for the warehousing. So this means a lot of capital involvement.
Capital investment, yes.
So when the capital investment is there, and they think all the North, one thing is, another good thing with the North distillers is that I have seen is they think very big. They think very big compared to the South, So what is happening is the volume size is very big. So the production cycle is going to be very fast, and they're going to fill their warehouses in no time. And ultimately, at the back of the mind is to take care of the entry, IMFL segment or even the premium segment right now. But ultimately, they are all eyeing the premium and super premium segments as well. So in that sense, if you ask me this question, I see there's a good future for these medium and bigger sort of companies to have a good scale in these products in future.
Very interesting perspective indeed, Surendra. Thank you again so much for this perspective. And it looks like we're going to have some good news from lesser known distilleries in terms of what they are producing, and we'll see some more quality stuff coming our way.
Yeah, definitely.
Chanel, I have a question for you. Now, as a person who's been involved in research and development from brown spirits, are you aware of any plans from the whiskey world for any single malt whiskeys to be released our way? If you are, and Harsha, you'll need to unmute Chanel, please.
So there's no, unfortunately, I'm not really working presently on,
No, we're aware of that very well, but I'm just asking, casually saying that if you are aware of any such plans that is coming our way, only in terms of new creativity coming.
I'm sure there are a few, because in terms of people approaching me, I have had quite a few people who have approached me in terms of asking me for information as to either how they can be distillers. That's something that's, I think, taken on a little more. Everybody has been interested about whiskey, but not many people know how to get about and how to get into the industry. So I've been approached by a lot of people, especially during this period where people have had the time to go back and research. asking about whiskey, about the kind of courses they could do, the kind of courses are available. And there have been a few inquiries about, hey, do you know any people who are making whiskey? But I don't know anybody who is actually starting it at the moment, but I know there are a few budding, distillers that are coming out there who want to make product. And as you know, whiskey is a capital investive, kind of industry. And even finding, either location or distillers takes a while. But I'm glad that there has been interest in new people to kind of get into the industry and, younger consumers actually, get into the industry, which has been quite exciting actually.
All right. Thank you, Chanel. Angad, before you, I think so, Himanshu has raised his hand, but because Angad is pretty keen to get to that wedding, I'm going to let you take one last question before I let you go, Angad. So from your experience, what's India's favorite taste profile, Angad?
Sorry, Hemanth, I missed your question. Can I have that one more time, please?
Yeah, I was just wondering from your experience, what's India's favorite taste profile? What does it look like, according to you?
For sure, we like Speyside malts quite a lot, and that's why the consumption and the numbers are such. But non-chill filtered is what I have seen is what people are talking about in the groups around and in the communities around, and that's what is coming around. So all the experiments that we've been making, people are actually leaving behind the cosmetic value of chill filtration and going for the non-chill filtered expressions for some time. Sherry cask exclusive from different distilleries are gaining popularity across the country, and to a lot of enthusiasts have been talking to me about sherry cask at cask strength variants as well. So that is another very interesting thing. On the last thing that I would like to mention here is that not only are the aged variants, but the experimental whiskeys will be gaining more popularity as the consumer will become more younger. And as probably our wallets will get fatter again, our palates will get better again.
Well said, Angad, and I like that policy that you have out there in terms of the wallets and pallets. Well, I'm just going to throw one last thing. I can't resist this because quite a lot of pings from the audience my way saying that what are the new releases that we can look forward to from Glenfiddich? Do we have anything that's on the board?
So the last release that you would have seen would be the Glenfiddich Grand Cru, the 23-year-old single malt whiskey that we finished in French Cuvée cask. We were supposed to do our next experiment, the 5th experiment this year. So our last experiment that came out was Glenfiddich Fire and Cane. So we were planning to do the 5th experiment this year, but that has been delayed by probably a year's time. Day before yesterday, we launched our Speyside edition of Sherry exclusive 2013 Sherry cask. Only 500 or 600 bottles made, all auctioned, and all the money to be donated for the COVID victims. Apart from that, we are redesigning our grand range, which will be the 21, 23, 26, and the ones in the 20s, and that's what we are working on right now. So probably the next expression that you'll be seeing is something in that particular range. Then an experiment coming in the middle of next year, and then we're looking for one more release by the end of next year if things go smoothly here.
Okay. Angad, thank you so much. I think that we are already 10 minutes over time as expected, but I think it's been an interesting session. If you need to step away, we are so glad to have had you here for so long. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you're free to join and stay for longer, then please do, but otherwise you're free to go. Angad, thank you very much.
I have to get to an Indian wedding now. Only 20 people, so I'm a special person there because there are only 20.
Cheers then. All the best, Angad. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay. Now, I'm just going to move to some rapid fire questions. Now, 30 seconds for all of you to answer this question. And I'll start with... Sorry, Ashok, you're saying something? Okay,
Sorry.
anyway. So I'm going to start with Ashok. Since he was saying something, I'm going to start with him saying that when are we going to see the final release of Amrit Amaze, Ashok? I had to pull this one on you in front of 60 people.
I think our agreement is to bottle it in November and release it, right?
That's correct.
So that is still on the cards.
Okay.
Once hopefully the lockdown will be released on the first week of June.
Okay.
So you can come and discuss. So you have promised me to take me over dinner and discuss on the deal.
Of course, and that deal stays as it is. But Ashok, thank you so much. I think that that assures a lot of people in our audience about the third and final release of our exclusive single malt whiskey from Amrit Amaze. Okay, moving on to Robin. Robin, when do we see you next in India? I know that a lot of uncertainties around and things like that, but please tell us, when can we see you next in India?
As soon as the lockdown
No, there's no date yet. I've done quite a few of these virtual tastings with Indian audiences, so I'm just very keen to get back out to India. I've visited India twice. The first time was Gurgaon, and then we went down to Pune, and then we ended up in Mumbai, and then the second time was it was Chennai, Bangalore, and Chandigarh. And so I've managed to get around India a little bit. I find it such a fascinating country. It really, it really delivers, the whole Indian experience. It does exactly what it says on the sales brochure, as it were. And of course, I love cricket as well. And I used to play cricket. I mean, not a very high standard. I played pub cricket, which is quite a popular sport, even in Scotland. 20 overs each innings, and you bring your glass of beer onto the pitch.
That sounds like a really nice game, though. Actually, getting your glass onto the pitch.
Oh yeah, no, that's what pub cricket, and you're playing with your friends. Is absolutely the sound of leather on willow is just something magical about that, and you understand that in India, and that's how we will be, forever bonded. But of course through whiskey, and that brings me to the point. It's such a bonding drink. You don't really bond with a glass of wine or a glass of vodka, possibly Charlene, but whiskey really is a bonding drink. It's about connecting, and I'm certainly looking forward to connecting with you and your members in the future, and hopefully maybe not this year, but if Ashutosh, Rajput, and Sushana are listening in, I'm not sure they are, but these are the guys to go and prod those and tell them that we want Cooper over in India.
With a few bottles of Glen Grant whiskey that he was showing us over the call. We have this section recorded, thankfully, and I'm going to bring this up at the right opportunity then, Robin. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to move on to Himanshu. Harsha, if you can unmute Himanshu, please. Himanshu, two questions actually I have. One is, what are the new releases that we can expect from Paul John? And apart from your house brand, what's your favorite drink?
Okay, so I'll answer the easy one first, which is what are the new ones that is coming in? Well, this year we have a lineup of Oloroso and PX, which is absolutely ready and cracking to go. It was supposed to be launched placed in Goa during March, but we all know what happened. So as soon as we get our re-registrations done, we will be getting into Oloroso and PX in the market. Limited quantities, so we are restricting in India for Goa, Karnataka, and Maharashtra. And I think that would be in the Q2 now as we go about. We have started the tradition of Christmas editions. So as we speak, we will be releasing our Christmas 2020. That is on the way, and our shipments will start in Q2 for international markets, and then subsequently in Q3 for the domestic. I have good news there. We have decided to, Christmas editions was only in Goa, as you know, but this year we will expand because Michael has been kind enough to give us a little bit more this year to also bring it to Karnataka.
Fantastic. That's the news that we'd like to hear. And
And
I'm not going to let you go on the second question, though.
Okay, at this point of time, I think the cask 6028 is my favorite. This is the one which we took for the photography. So I decided to crack it open and share it and get a taste of it after what we did on Feb 29th at the distillery.
Yeah, it was the LEAP tour, right? We just made it in the nick of time, I think so, in terms of our tour. Just before the COVID-19 situation hit us.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to move on to Vishnu, who's been silent for quite some time. Vishnu, according to you, now a lot of people on this call might be wanting to hear this. According to you, what's the sweet spot in terms of pricing for premium whiskeys?
Well, that's a very a question which is, really, I really cannot say what is the best point of pricing for now, because every year you have this prices rising at no cost. So the premium pricing which was earlier has become a super premium now. So what is a local whiskey's pricing has become a premium. So there is definitely place where you can definitely keep it a bottle around 4,000 to 3,500 to 4,000 rupees in Indian rupees. This will be definitely a good place. But as you know that today is 4,000, tomorrow will be in 8,000. So there is the value of the liquid is definitely not the same value of the amount what it is there. So it is a really difficult question for me to answer, but I can say it is around to 3,000 to 4,000 INR. Yes.
Okay, so interesting perspective there, actually, because of the taxes. What used to be a normal non-premium whiskey is now moved into a premium whiskey because just purely by virtue of the taxes. Yeah, interesting point there.
Right.
Now, well, Krishna, 30 seconds before we move on to audience questions. Tell us the best way to taste whiskey. I think so a lot of people in the audience would be, yearning to hear from you. What's the best way to taste whiskey?
That's a very difficult
but you got
question.
only 30 seconds, Krishna.
You see, there are two aspects of it. If you want to enjoy whiskey, just enjoy whiskey the way you like it, with whatever you want to. You can put water, you can put soda, you can put cola, anything. That's enjoying whiskey. But when you want to appreciate whiskey, that is a different ball game altogether. So for appreciation of whiskey, you need to have right wear, right temperature, right atmosphere. Everything should be perfect. So that's the way, that's how it is. Enjoyment and appreciation. Enjoyment level, it's your choice. Appreciation, not your choice. It is fixed. There has to be certain parameters fixed, because you're going to, you're going to enjoy the subtle aspects of appreciation, which doesn't come by adding water or cola or soda. So that's what I say.
Thank you very much, Krishna. Wise word indeed. Now, Harsha, I guess we are way over time, as you normally predicted, saying that I'll ramble on, but I had such a set of panelists with me. So please don't blame me. But do you have any audience questions? And if you do, then probably you can, I'll allow you to unmute them and take them on. Harsha, you yourself are on mute. You need to unmute yourself before.
I was unmuting everybody else. Sorry about that, Hemanth. I've got Praful from Dubai here. He's got a very pertinent question, because all of us consumers are probably thinking the same as. Praful, take it away from me.
Hi, thank you, Harsha. Hey, Hemanth. Hi, Ashok, Surinder sir. Hey, Himanshu. Big hi to everyone from Dubai all the way. I'm part of something called as Malt Society Arabia, something quite similar to what SMAC does over there in India. Being here and being the travelers that we are, one of the biggest whiskey pickup point for us has always been duty frees. In the current circumstances, I would really like to ask Himanshu and Ashok both. In the current circumstances, when we don't see any duty free happening, from the perspective of from the brand owners or sellers to the perspective of the consumers and the buyers, how do you see this shift happening and how the change would happen in the future? And how are you looking to overcome that hurdle of not being able to service that big segment of the market?
Okay, Harsha, if you can unmute Ashok first, and then we'll go to Himanshu to take this question. Ashok, would you want to respond to Praful? And Praful, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Praful. I think this question is really a kind of, I would say, individual circumstances on which distillery works upon. For example, at this present situation as of today, for me, there is no need to sell my brand in the duty free because I don't have enough stock, right? My domestic demand is far more higher than what I have at the moment. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to disregard duty free as a market. That's why we have a small presence in Dubai duty free. Situation like this, like because of COVID, there is no travel and number of passengers are going to be less this year. So I need to basically reposition myself without relying too much on the travel retail. So that means, to answer your question, I got to get my stock more into Barracuda, right? For you to pick it up.
I just started to sweat about it actually.
Yeah. So or Ajman. So I think that's going to happen for sure this year, but probably not immediately because the Indian customs are not open yet for exports. I presume that will open sometime in July or August. So for your Christmas or perhaps Diwali, you will have your bottle. That's how I put it.
Very reassuring, Ashok, at the end of it. Harsha, can you move on to Himanshu? Can you unmute him, please, so that we'll be able to hear his response to this?
Praful, as we speak, I just received the schedule of Emirates flights to India, which has recommenced from 15th of June. They are opening up the Indian sector. So as long as we have our friends that go to Dubai, we will have the stocks personally delivered to you. That is on a personal guarantee. But the second one, rest assured, whether it's MMI or whether it's Barracuda or whether it's Dubai duty free, in all these three places, stocks is not a problem. We have enough stocks to go around. And I think by the time we catch up on all the routes across duty-free places, whether it's Delhi, Bombay and Bangalore and the rest of the 8 places, I think we are good to go from day one.
Okay. Yeah. Harsha, do we have any more questions? Thank you, Himanshu. Yeah. Oh, we have one from Robin.
Oh, yeah. We'll take that one.
Yeah, we'll take that one for sure. Can you unmute him, please?
Done.
Yep.
Hi. So Praful, I think I follow you, and we follow each other on Instagram. We've done a lot. We've invested quite heavily into what we call global travel retail, duty free. And I used to work for Glenmorangie years and years ago, and Glenmorangie, created its global name out of global travel retail. By building displays, by sampling and all the rest of it. So it is a big loss for us. On the other hand, and I think this is maybe a shock point, is that we would rather sell all of our liquid in the domestic markets, and the reason is because it actually it's a bit more profitable. so then we can then invest in planning and building stock for the future. The duty-free channel is not a very profitable channel for us, but on the other hand, it allows us to build elevate the awareness of the brand. So, but I think, and I hope and I pray that when life goes back to normal, and people will start traveling again, and hopefully, you know, these stores will be open again, and we can start selling, you know, to traveling, you know, people who are traveling, you know, long haul through Dubai, through London, through Amsterdam, through the Asian markets, etc. Because we really depend on that channel, you know, to promote Scotch whiskey, to promote, you know, premium, super premium spirits to people who may be looking to pick up something they can't find in their local liquor store, or they're buying a gift to go to a wedding or whatever it is. You know, hopefully it will come back again. So thanks for letting me contribute to that question.
Thank you, Robin, as always. I think so. We have another question, Harsha. Is that from Kasturi?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Kasturi.
I have one question. There are some states where there have been extra taxes put on for sales of liquor currently.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think that is going to go away once things settle? We don't know when. And a related question to that is, the listings of labels are extremely high in various states. Do you think with this condition that we are in, to encourage the market and to curb the losses, do you think there's going to be a revision in those duties and those listing charges?
Okay, I'm going to actually divert this question to three different people.
It's a question for Himanshu and Surinder and.
Oh, you got the people right, Kasturi. They're the exact people that I want. But I just want to let people with the maximum amount of frustration go first. Against this, I'm just placing my order, saying that who would be most frustrated about this changing? I let Surinder go first because probably he would be a little more mellow in his response, the usual calm person that he is. Surinder, can you respond to Kasturi's question, please?
I have lived that life. That era is back of me. So I'm looking forward to the next innings. You know, so I'll be less, sort of tense in that sense. You're right. But then the question is very good. It's relevant, and this has been actually the governments are dictating terms to the distillers and the consumers, basically. This is what they want to, you know, they make the hay while the sun shines, you know, basically that adage goes, you know, which says, you know, you make, you make a quick buck out of a situation, you know. And they thought that probably when they saw the long queues in front of their shops, so they thought that probably, you know, we're going to sell, you know, we're going to make good amount of losses in terms of, you know, revenue collection. But then, you know, that was counterproductive, you know, as Mr. Vishnu also mentioned, you know, there was a long queue in front of his shops, and then ultimately it dwindled. It was not seen as brisk as it was on the first day. So, in light of that, Delhi has already probably taken an you know, decision to waive off the increase in the duties. So I'm sure slowly it is going to go off, because the sales will not be commensurate with their expectations. So I'm sure it is going to give a breather to ultimately the customers, you know, for paying a hard-earned money for the dram. And I would suggest they should do it very fast, so that, you know, people are not put to inconvenience. And this is ultimately, you know, it has to be, you know, I always say that any product that is compatible, you know, with everything should be viable to the manufacturer, and it should be affordable for the customer. Ultimately, that rule should apply. If that rule is not applicable, the quantities are going to come. There are going to be, unpleasantness in the customers, in the mind of the customers, and especially in these times when you need to help the industry, help the, the customers. So I'm sure your question is relevant. It is going to go off. It is not going to stay there. In Karnataka, you see, the revenue collection has drastically gone down. Even they are not going to touch the monthly target. This month target, they are not going to achieve. So ultimately, this has to go. I'm sure I'm with you. And really a good question in these present circumstances. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Surinder. I'm going to move on to Himanshu before I go on to Ashok, because Ashok is going to go all guns blazing for this question. So I'm just going to give him his time to gather his thoughts. Harsha, can you unmute Himanshu so that he can respond to this question before I let Mr. Chokalingam handle the government officials as he normally does?
Well, I needed to take a sip to mellow my response.
Okay.
So the reality is, and I hope I would subscribe to Mr. Kumar's optimism, but this COVID is not going to go till the vaccine comes. So the tax will not go. Okay. So this will stay. Yeah, so I think that's the reality that will stay for a long time till the the organizing bodies like CIBC and all of that make a representation. Remember, it's not a state subject. It's a state subject and it's not a national subject. So every state has to be approached on its own. So that is another level of shenanigans and pain that we have to go through. The second part is the registrations. There is a divide that has happened within the industry, and that is the international spirits brands, which is ISWAI and CIBC. ISWAI has its agenda for BIO brands being registered at a cheaper rate, which I called it as the reverse Taj Mahal fee, because when Indians go to visit Taj Mahal, you pay 50 rupees. When a foreigner goes to Taj Mahal, they pay $10. Here, the Indian is paying the $10 and the foreigner is paying the 50 rupees. So that is going to be another level of representation. But these are two different battles, and these two different battles will not be done parallelly or simultaneously. This will remain as an Indian state excise endeavor at all levels for both of these things, and they are going to go on. I don't see that even if we have a conversation next year, the COVID tax may be still around, may not be in that percentage, but it will still be around if we don't have an immunity like a vaccine or so.
Okay, thanks, Himanshu. Contrasting views there. Ashok, tell me. I mean, this is the question that you have been waiting for all evening.
Maybe you can
fire away.
Hemanth, maybe you can be my alter ego and tell your own experience of the 2 releases of Amaze and what the hell that you have gone through.
So we'll need a separate call for that. For an ask schedule.
Right. I mean, for example, I and Surinder have gone through all the hell over the years. It's a very simple answer is, for example, if I have my distillery in Scotland, if Kasturi wants to bottle a single malt from a distillery and stating that it's a Kasturi selection, there you go. The next week, the bottling is done. But in India, every single damn thing that you wanted to put in the label got to be registered, and that's a process. And that process can be anywhere between 1 month to 3 months, and with a hefty amount of 1 lakh rupee a label in India, in Karnataka, for example, at the moment, right? If you wanted to change a word, and then an amendment charge. If it is a major deviation from the existing label, there's another 1 lakh. So, unfortunately, because of the rule of the land, it doesn't have any flexibility for us at all compared to our Scotch counterparts. And that's the saddest part of this democracy here. And that makes life very, very difficult. And then there are so many unflexible regulations as compared to what we have in the Scotch industry, makes our life really, really tough. However, with all these stumbling blocks, I think Amrut and PJ has done justice to what an Indian single malt can be into the global market so far. So it's not that easy. I think you will have a super thriller for your MS3. Hemanth.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I guess Kasturi, a question answered at multi levels. As per, I'm just going to allow one last question because we have really run out of time. But I see one question from Rahul who's posted on chat. Then the question is again back to Ashok in terms of ABV. He said that as many of Amrut expressions at a 50% ABV or less, would it be possible to release Narangi and Kadambam in the Indian retail store?
The good news is one of the two brands will become available in Bangalore for sure in the next couple of months. Again, see, the issue for us is we would love to release as many variants as possible in the domestic market. The problem is the fusion at 42.8% is not the same as the fusion at 50%.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, yes.
So any whiskey for that matter. So the moment you dilute the alcohol strength and increase it, the taste profile is going to be different. There are certain brands we wanted to be very adamant on the alcoholic strength, right? Let's say 50%.
Right.
And I don't want to compromise that by diluting it to 42.8 and sell it in Bangalore for the sake of selling.
Yeah.
And that is a major stumbling block for us. And I think Karnataka is the one state which was liberal enough to, for example, allow to sell Amrut at 46%, right? No other state. For example,
True.
Bombay, forget it. It's not possible. And I think PJ has made an inroad into that. We'll follow the trail later on. But that is a problem for us. Because of that reason, we could not release all the brands that are being sold in the global market in the domestic market. However, we have taken a policy now. From now on, any new brand that is released into the global market, as long as it is like 50-55% and below, it will be available in Bangalore at least, if not pan-India.
That deserves an applause, doesn't it?
And we are making a sizable allocation of all the brands in the domestic market.
Fantastic, fantastic news. All right, folks, way over time.
I'm going to interrupt you, okay? So somebody promises this to be fun, this last question, so I'm going to let her in. So we're going to end it on a lighter note. So Kasturi, one more.
Okay, I have a question, which is like you see in Scotland, like when they make a blended malt, they take whiskey from different distilleries. So in future, do we see something like that in India? Can Amrut and Paul John collaborate and come up with an expression, which is a nice blended best malt?
I'm not going to say anything before the two gentlemen say what they have to. But Himanshu, yes, please go ahead.
I'm waiting Ashok to say yes.
I am ready, mate.
Okay.
Oh, we have a blend made on Whisky Wise session already. But folks, it's been a fantastic evening. I still haven't got through all my questions, but gratitude to all the panel members for bearing with us through all these questions, and the audience. We are way over time and still I don't see too many of them dropping off. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to have this recording up on our YouTube channel soon for other people to view, and it's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hemanth. Thank you, SMAC, and all the panelists and all the audiences. It's been really a fantastic time. Robin and Angad, all other guys, Krishna's, my guru Surinder, Himanshu, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Okay.